Incoming transmission.
Welcome to This Week in Trek, the brand new series from Cine Nerd Presents Blur Trek. I'm your host, Will Polk, and I'm thrilled to be your guide through the biggest news in the Star Trek universe for the week ending November 8, 2025. Hold on to your Actigino. This week has been a genuine roller coaster, hitting the highest of highs and what feels like for some fans a definite low. The Lego Star Trek set that we've been dreaming of for decades is finally official, and it is an absolute thing of beauty. We're going to break down every glorious detail of the new Lego Enterprise D, but you have to take the good with the bad. On the other side of the wormhole, it seems the plug has finally, and some might even say mercifully, been pulled. After nearly a decade of false starts, rotating directors, and endless speculation, the word is in from Paramount itself. The Kelvin timeline is officially over. Star Trek 4 is no more. Plus, we want to revisit the audio drama Star Trek Con, as it aired its last episode this week. So set a course for the biggest news in the Federation. We're going to celebrate a plastic brick masterpiece, and then pour one out for a movie that was never meant to be. This is the Week in Trek. All right, let's kick things off with the spectacular news. The con that makes you feel like a kid at Christmas morning, no matter how old you are, after years, no, decades of fans building their own MOCs, that's my own creations for the uninitiated, and begging for an official collaboration between Lego and Paramount. It has finally happened. We got a teaser on this on Star Trek Day 2025 with the little short trailer with Lego Star Trek. But our first product that they have unveiled is the Lego's icon, Star Trek USS Enterprise NCC 1701D. Here are some details courtesy of StarTrek.com. And let me tell you, this is not some dinky little model. This is the real deal. A collector's dream. We're talking about a 3,600 piece set. When fully assembled, creates a stunningly detailed replica of the Galaxy class flagship from Star Trek The Next Generation. The final model, with its display stand, measures over 10 inches high, almost 2 feet wide, and almost 2 feet long. This is a proper centerpiece, a testament to one of the most iconic ship designs in sci-fi history. The detail is just astonishing. Of course, it has the iconic saucer section, secondary hull, and warp nacelles with the proper red and blue transparent detailing. But the detailers and the designers went further. The command saucer is fully detachable, just like in the show. You can perform your own saucer section right in your living room. The set also features an opening shuttle bay that reveals 2 tiny brick shuttle pods inside. It's these little touches that take a set from good to legendary. The model comes with a sleek display stand and an information plaque for the U.S. Enterprise, given that platinum premium museum quality feel that we've come to expect from the Lego Icons line. It's designed as a captivating sci-fi decor piece, and it's absolutely nails it. So, let's move to the crew. A ship is nothing without its people, and Lego is delivering. The set includes 9 minifigures, covering the core bridge crew and beloved mainstays from TNG. We got Captain Jean-Luc Picard, Commander William Riker, Lieutenant Worf, Lieutenant Commander Data, Dr. Beverly Crusher, Lieutenant Commander Geordi LaForge, Counselor Troy. We also get Guinan, and yes, we even get Wesley Crusher. The only notable omission that stings a bit, I would say, is Chief O'Brien. But with a lineup that is this strong, it's hard to complain. Some others may also note that maybe they should have included Tasha Yar, given that she was part of the crew in the first season. But I will have to say that each minifigure comes with accessories packed with the thematic flavor. For example, Picard has his teacup, naturally. Riker, of course, has his trombone. Data is, of course, as you see here, is accompanied by Spot. You'll also find phasers, tricorders, Geordi's engineering case, There's even a separate display stand for the minifigures, as you can see there, branded with the Next Generation logo. Next, this has definitely been a long time coming. For years, the idea of LEGO Star Trek was a licensing pipe dream. Seeing this set realized with so much care and detail feels like not only a moment for the fandom, it's one for everyone. This isn't just a toy, it's a validation of the Next Generation's enduring legacy. So, what can you do and when can you get this masterpiece? So, the LEGO's Icon USS Enterprise NCC 1701D will be available starting on Black Friday, November 28th, 2025. It will be sold on Lego.com and in Lego stores for $399.99 here in the US. For a licensed set of this size, that price feels just right in line with other collector's items. And also, there's more. To sweeten the deal, LEGO has a fantastic incentive for early purchasers. If you purchase the Enterprise D between November 28 and December 1, you'll receive a special gift with your purchase while supplies last. That gift is the LEGO Icons Star Trek Type 15 shuttle pod. This isn't just some polybag. It is a proper mini-figure scale model of the shuttle. And crucially, it comes with an exclusive 10th minifigure, Ensign Ro Laren. This is a brilliant move that makes an already must-buy set even more irresistible. The shuttle even has a little detail on its LCARS display showing a Romulan schematic ship, and also which is a perfect deep cut for fans. And to celebrate, LEGO is hosting some live stream events that aired earlier this week with the set designers, and also has a sweepstakes for LEGO insiders to win a signed copy by Commander Riker himself, actor Jonathan Frakes, with a quote for the announcement whenever he talked about this sweepstakes. As a Commander Riker, I spent a lot of time on the bridge of the Enterprise, and now fans can take the helm themselves in LEGO brick form. It's just perfect. This really is a home run, and it's truly a love letter to the Next Generation and a product that fans have wanted for clearly a generation. It's a moment of just pure, unadulterated fan joy. So, we have to now leave the celebratory vibe of 10 Forward and head down to the engine room, where things are a little bit more explosive. So, from the absolute highest of highs, we turn now to a low. And that is a low that's been under construction for almost nearly a decade now. A new report from Variety has made it official that Paramount has moved on from the Star Trek 4 movie in the Kelvin universe. It was one that we've been told was coming for some time, but let's be clear what this actually means. So according to the report from Variety this week, it details the strategy of the new Paramount Skydance Chief Executive Officer David Ellison. He bought the company, Skydance bought the company, and they basically have made the announcement. It is a very exhaustive piece about a lot of things that are happening at the studios with this merger between Paramount and Skydance. But it was a short little line in the story that said, and I quote from the story, "The hope is to have a fresh Star Trek movie. Though the studio has moved on from the idea of bringing back Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, and the rest of the ensemble from the J.J. Abrams reboot." So, with that report that Star Trek is itself going to come back on the big screen in some form, the Kelvin timeline at this point looks like it is no more. And the adventures of Pine's Kirk, Quinto's Spock, Carl Urban, who played Dr. McCoy, and Zoe Saldana, who played Uhura, and the rest of the brilliant cast is over. And I have to say, frankly, that this is really not too big of a shock. It's more of a confirmation of what we have all suspected for years. But seeing it in print does sting some. It's a disappointing end for the cast, who clearly had an incredible chemistry, and it also successfully rebooted the modern Star Trek franchise back in 2009. So, how did we get here? How does a franchise with an A-list cast fail to launch a fourth film for almost a decade years now? The history of Star Trek 4 is truly a case study in development chaos. Problems started after Star Trek Beyond aired back in 2016 2016. While many fans loved it for capturing the original series spirit, this film was written by cast member Simon Pegg and directed by Justin Lin. It underperformed at the box office, grossing about $343 million worldwide on a massive $185 million budget. So that's not the kind of profit that gets executives excited about greenlighting another film in a series. And that hesitation created the first crack. Next, the first attempt to bring a fourth film was an intriguing one, with S.J. Clarkson set to be the first woman to direct a Trek film. The script featured a time travel plot that reunited Chris Pine's Kirk with his father, George Kirk, played by Chris Hemsworth, who we saw at the very, very beginning of Star Trek 2009. But it fell apart reportedly over contract negotiations, and Paramount religiously wanted Pine and Hemsworth to take pay cuts, and both actors basically balked and said no. So then, after that, the next thing that came was a potential Star Trek film from Quentin Tarantino. And he pitched an idea that seems to be a real project for a time, but like many things that pops into Quentin Tarantino's head, it eventually faded away. Next up was an idea from Noah Hawley, who many folks are very familiar with his work from TV's Fargo and Legion, and then most recently the series Alien Earth that just concluded not too long ago. And his take was rumored to involve a galaxy-wide pandemic, which sounds eerily prescient whenever you consider the time frame that this pitch was put out there. It was right around the time of the pandemic, or shortly there in the middle of it. And the studio got cold feet, feeling that it's strayed too far from the crew audiences knew, but that they have seen so far in the Kelvin timeline. And there were some other elements of the story too that the studio was just not too thrilled about, so that project went away. And then the most recent one, and the one that we talked about on our main show here on the podcast, was an attempt that came from to reboot, have the fourth film with someone who's very familiar from folks in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Matt Shakman, who was the director of most recently Fantastic Four, and also really got his big claim to fame in the Marvel Universe with the series Wanda. Now, in early 2022, J.J. Abrams announced that at a Paramount Investor Day that Star Trek 4 was indeed on track for a 2023 release, and with the full cast returning. There was a problem though. This was news to the cast, who hadn't signed on or even seen a script. And I remember talking about this on our show. It's so weird when this all dropped. It was a bizarre move, basically to placate the shareholders at Investor Day for the studio. Shakman, of course, as I noted, eventually departed for Marvel's Fantastic Four, leaving the project directorless once again. Then, while all this was going on, recently, last year maybe, there was another origin film that was pitched to be directed by Toby Haynes' Andor fame, with X-Men producer Simon Kinberg joining on as a franchise head for the overall Star Trek cinematic franchise. But any updates on that really has really fallen pretty silent, and so when you think about the revolving doors at the creatives, then there is the tragic reality of Anton Yelchin's passing, because his portrayal of Chekhov was just pitch perfect, and recasting him would have been just honestly unthinkable. I think they would have done what they did with a show that we recently talked about here on the podcast, Gen V, where you had Chance Perdomo, actor who portrayed one of the key characters on that show, passing, and they rewrote the story to fit that. I think they would have done that if Star Trek 4 had continued. But of course, the weight of that loss definitely hung over any discussion of any sequel. So basically, where we are here at the end of 2025 is that the studio has finally decided to just pull it and the Kelvin timeline. So is it disappointing? Yes and no. For me, I'm just going to be honest. It's a shame that this cast, as I noted, who've gone on to do, all of them have gone on to do many awesome things. They deserve a proper send-off. But in another sense, it's a relief, because I have to say, while the Kelvin timeline was fun, in some respects to me it was creatively constrained. I think the first film wasn't, but when you think about the Into Darkness, where it just basically was a wash, rinse, and remix of The Wrath of Khan, and while the Beyond definitely it was a nice, cool, new, fresh story. It did have a lot of the Star Trek tropes that, destroy the Enterprise. We've seen that part before in Star Trek Generations, and of course in Star Trek 3. There were just so many like nods to other parts of the franchise. And I will say that all, to me, and this is my opinion, but the Kelvin universe, there's a lot of flash, and I'm not talking about the lens flares, but in some situations, not enough substance. And so that was one thing I think was a drawback to the franchise, to the timeline. And then, of course, the original timeline exists as a sort of cast a shadow over the Kelvin timeline. So I think by pulling the plug here, I think the studio is giving a truly fresh start to the franchise with a new creative team to come in. And this all plugs into a bigger conversation that has been going on in the fandom about where should Star Trek go next, because we have gotten chatter around Scott Bakula returning as a Captain Archer, and these stories and wishful thinking stem from a pitch from Enterprise writer Mike Sussman for a show called Star Trek United, and where we see some of the ideas that's been kicked about is potentially a political thriller following Archer as president of the Federation. And Bakula himself recently appeared on the Today Show, and he was promoting a Broadway show that he is currently on, and he confirmed that he would love to do more Star Trek, but was clear that these things are just rumors and nothing is officially in the works. And to me, that perfectly captures the franchise's crossroads, especially now with the changeover with the studio, the merger with Paramount and Skydance. And this crossroads that I'm speaking of is the pull of nostalgia versus the need for the new. And we've seen this even in modern Trek, with New Trek, with the Strange New Worlds, and also even with the Star Trek Academy show coming now, where they're pulling in the Doctor from Voyager. And yes, it's a spinoff from Star Trek Discovery, which was an attempt to push the franchise in a different way, but it was a prequel show using a legacy character with Spock as in the second season in particular. And of course, seeing Archer again would be wonderful. I mean, I do love Star Trek Enterprise, and I really wish that show had gotten a full run. But I will have to say that the franchise, as I noted, the franchise is saturated with prequels and continuations in existing time periods that have all been very well mined at this point. And so, to me, the core of Star Trek has always been to look forward. I mean, think about it. The Next Generation was pushing the story forward. Yes, there were some legacy characters built in, and they did show up, but they always were there for the story, for the purpose of the story, not just to have, oh, cool, it's, Scotty showing up, or oh, cool, Spock is showing up. It was always the Next Generation really pushed the story forward. And I think a thing is that Star Trek does so well at is a lot of times it's allegory for things in its time period. When you look at the original series, it's kind of a time capsule of some of the social issues and political issues that were being dealt with in the 60s. Same with the Next Generation in the late 80s, early 90s on. Heck, even Deep Space Nine show, you could do a show on a space station without having to travel. But again, they were just exploring so many different, building on the great foundation and really expanding on what Star Trek is. And so I just feel like rehashing the past, whether it's the Kelvin timeline or endless prequels, can feel counter to that spirit. So I really think hopefully we'll get the story moving forward and not just staying mired in legacy characters and just rehashing stories and just sort of spinning our wheels, which I think we saw some of that this past season with Star Trek Strange New Worlds season 3. But while we finish up that story, I do want to close out by talking about another story that we thought we knew, but we did get a second look. And that is, I finally finished the 9-episode audio drama Star Trek Con. And I wanted to give my thoughts on what I've learned and what I heard for the whole story. Now, I will say spoilers ahead here. So if you haven't finished the story, drop off now and come back and listen to my spoiler thoughts. But if you had, continue to listen on. So I found the series highly entertaining. And as you could probably see on my post on Spotify, for each episode, I did comment pretty much on just about every one of them. It succeeds in adding context and layers to a character we thought we knew, inside and out, thanks to strong writing and a genuinely fantastic performance by Naveen Andrews, who makes the role his own, and also Ren Schmidt as Marla McGivers and all the voice cast. It really was an immersive story. The sound design was impeccable and super immersive, and it was genuinely thrilling to hear George Takei and Tim Russ reprising their roles as Sulu. And the framing device with a historian investigating the SETI Alpha 5 tragedy works well. And the story of Khan trying to build a paradise is compelling. However, the big twist that the historian in the story, Dr. Lear, is the daughter that he had with Marla McGivers, to me was telegraphed so far in advance that it lost its impact when it happened. And because I think some of the things was her obsession with the lessons of what happened on SETI Alpha 5 just felt too specific from the start. And so while I did enjoy all 9 episodes, I stand by a critique that I made earlier when I reviewed the first 3 episodes. And also some of the things that I've thought about what we dealt with here this evening is that the story confirms what we already know about Khan's tragic flaws. And I think it missed a huge opportunity because, to me, by revealing that the aliens, the Aborians who they met, were the ones who tragically and accidentally caused the destruction of SETI Alpha 6, to me that lets the story go to a place where it completely lets Kirk off the hook, which they were teasing early on in the series that maybe there was something more there. But then when that happened, it let him off the hook for not checking on the colony and all what happened from the events moving on that we later see in the Wrath of Khan, in my opinion. So I would say, just imagine if there were no aliens and the planet's explosion of SETI Alpha 6 was a random catastrophic event that maybe Spock and Kirk missed whenever they did the survey. Kirk's failure to follow up would have become a truly tragic mistake, tarnishing our hero and adding a complex, devastating layer to his and Khan's rivalry. Instead, the Alborian arc feels like a basically plot armor, cool, but ultimately safe addition to the lore. And that's just my take. But this week overall has given us so much to talk about, from the joy of a Dream Lego set to the definite end of a movie era with the Kelvin timeline wrapping up. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about the Lego Enterprise D? Is it a day one purchase? How do you feel about the end of the Star Trek Kelvin timeline feature films? Are you disappointed or are you relieved? What about the idea of Scott Bakula returning as President Archer? And for those who listen, what do you think of the Khan audio drama? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one of them and I try to comment on each. And if you really enjoyed this new feature here on Cine Nerd, be sure to make sure that you are subscribed and hit that notification button so that whenever a new episode of Cine Nerd or when Cine Nerd Blur Trek premieres, you will never miss an update. So what's the takeaway from this week of Star Trek? We celebrated the beautiful, long overdue arrival of USS Enterprise D in glorious Lego form, a true gift for fans. We closed the book on the Kelvin timeline of films, a journey that started with 2009, bang, and ended with a quiet confirmation after nearly a decade after its last voyage. And we are, of course, now left to debate the franchise's future, weighing the nostalgia of potential Captain Archer return against the need for new frontiers. And we got, if not revolutionary, a different perspective on the franchise's greatest film. It's a week of hellos, goodbyes, and endings and new beginnings. But one thing is certain: the Star Trek universe continues to expand on our shelves, in our ears through audio dramas, and on our screens with potentially new films and new series. Thank you so much for watching. Live long and prosper.